Ghost Pony Rider 2, The Dark Ones, by Mr. Houston. Chapter 1, In the Sky. Ponyville, late afternoon, Fluttershy's cottage. It was a nice day. Nicest day of the year to be exact. The birds were chirping, the sun was out, and no clouds. The temperature wasn't too warm, and not too hot either. The sun's rays are coming in through the medium-sized window in the main room, casting a small shadow of a tree in the room. A little bunny is waking up from a mid-afternoon nap. He was then greeted by his best friend. She walked past him with a happy smile. She was humming a tone that was joyful. Fluttershy comes across a small spider next to her hoof. The spider looks at Fluttershy with all its 8 eyes and just stares at her. She lets out a soft giggle and nudges the spider to a small hole in the wall. The spider crawls through with ease and Fluttershy continues walking to her front door. She casually grabs the handle, pushes it away from her. The creak of the door was soft as Fluttershy grabbed a flower basket and held in her mouth. She then walks toward a huge flower bed and begins sniffing and checking the flowers. A familiar voice then calls out to her. She looks up to see her friend that has been with her since childhood. "Hey Shy. What's up?" Rainbow Dash asks, flapping her wings. "Oh, hi Rainbow Dash. Just picking some flowers." She answers, picking up a dandelion. Rainbow Dash gives her friend an expressionless look as she lowers herself on the ground and just stares at her friend picking flowers. Fluttershy noticed this, and gave her friend a smile. Rainbow Dash looks around, and starts fooling around with some of the flowers. Rainbow pets the petals, digs her hoof in the flowers, and looks up at the sky. Dash knew what she was right now. Bored. She threw herself against the flowers and soon, Rainbow Dash was laying on her back looking at the sky, under the sun. Dash then got an idea. "Wanna go visit Twilight?" she asks. Fluttershy gives Rainbow Dash a wide-eyed look, and continues to the flowers, giving her friend a soft mumble. "She is in Canterlot, remember?" Rainbow Dash grins and fades away, and she scoffs, and folds her arms and begins pouting. Everybody knew why she was there. "Oh, right. She's busy dealing with Ghost Pony Rider's shenanigans," she said. Fluttershy nodded. It had been nearly a few months since the last time Ghost Pony Rider was seen in the Ponyville. Normally, he would be all over the news. Topics about him being a hero or a villain. Stories of him saving somebody, or killing them. Whatever it was on the news. All of the main 6 hadn't seen Ryder since then. They begin to worry if he still remembers them, or if he is even alive. It didn't matter. Rainbow Dash opened her eyes to the sky. She could see the clouds and a few Pegasus ponies flying around. Rainbow Dash signs and looks over to Fluttershy, who was doing the same thing. "Do you think he'll come back?" Rainbow asked. Fluttershy didn't know. She didn't know if Ghost Pony Rider even remembered them, or if he even wanted to come back. "I can't say for sure," she answered. Both ponies looked to the sky again. Moments of silence passed before Rainbow Dash broke the silence again, this time sounding more depressed. "I hope he hasn't." Rainbow Dash was cut off by screams coming from the sky. Multiple ponies were coming out of clouds, and with complete fear in their eyes. Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy then fly off, to try and see what the trouble is. They soon reach Cloudsdale. More and more ponies are flying in panic, and are screaming bloody murder. The two then see ponies on the clouds, who are missing wings, huge slash marks across their chests, and some are even dead. Fluttershy covers her mouth and looks away as Rainbow Dash stares in shock. Rainbow Dash recognizes the wounds and she isn't happy about it. The two then hear more screaming coming from a huge cloud building down the street. The two fly with rush as they come to the entrance of the building. What they see confirms Rainbow Dash's suspicion. A griffin, and a big one. He was easily 2 heads taller than a normal pony. His fur was black with small white stripes. His talons were blood red, and so were his eyes. His wings were maroon, with black stripes. What made him stand out though was what he was wearing. A helmet of a pony, that was blood red, as if it was freshly ripped from a pony's head. He also was wearing a necklace, full of bird bones. The griffin was holding a pony within his talon, and was choking her. He laughed manically as the pony begged for her life. Seeing enough, Rainbow Dash calls out, "Hey, bonehead. The Griffin turns around to face Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy with blood-red eyes and carnivorous pupils. He chuckles as he breaks the neck of the pony he was holding. The loud snap of the neck echoed through the building. Fluttershy was in tears and Rainbow Dash was gritting her teeth. The Griffin tossed the corpse a great length and began walking toward the ponies, his blood-red beak casting a shadow over the two. The Griffin lowered his torso to their height, while giving a sinister smile. The Griffin spoke with a out-of-country accent, and was little light in voice. "Hello, ponies." Rainbow Dash stood her ground as Fluttershy hid behind her. The Griffin then gave Rainbow a smirk and spoke again. "For the record, love, it's Deathtrap, not Bonehead." Deathtrap then swatted Rainbow Dash. She flew fast, and slammed into the wall with force. Fluttershy shrieked and rushed over to her friend. Rainbow Dash was out cold, blood running from her head. Fluttershy shook her friend, to try to wake her up, but nothing worked. She then noticed Deathtrap coming closer, with a huge sword in his talon. Deathtrap gave Fluttershy a wide-eyed, terrified look, as Deathtrap raised the sword over his head. He brought the sword down with force, but didn't make contact as Deathtrap was knocked off his feet by a spiked club end of a chain. He flew into a wall in a scorpion position and slid down. Deathtrap collected himself, and looked at the attacker. The shock in his eyes said it all. Fluttershy turned her head to see her old friend, his skull bursting with fire. A spear end of a chain through his skull. Eye sockets full of darkness. Ghost Pony Rider pulled his chain back, and twirled it around his leg. He then began walking toward Deathtrap, eye sockets narrowed. He stopped next to Fluttershy, and looked at her. He demonic and raspy voice she remembered. "Stay here," he said. Ghost Rider was then caught off guard by Deathtrap, who tackled him. Both him and Deathtrap were sent spiraling out of the building onto the street. Deathtrap picked up Ghost Rider by his bony neck, and slugged him hard in the skull, sending him crashing through a cloud building. Deathtrap chuckled. "So you're the famous Ghost Pony Rider, I've heard of him," he said, walking toward the wreckage. A fiery chain then came from the rubble, and slammed Deathtrap backwards, and sent him flying across the street, his body skating on the cloud. Ghost Rider emerges from the wreckage without a scratch. He jerked back his chain, twirling it above his head. Deathtrap slowly got up, and stared at the fire pony as it still was twirling his chain above his head. Deathtrap growled as he then began flying toward Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider narrowed his eye sockets. "Wait for it," he said. Rainbow Dash wakes up with the worst headache she can imagine, and looks to see Fluttershy, tears in her eyes, looking over her. Fluttershy sees her friend wake up, and wraps her in a monster bear hug. Rainbow Dash coughs for breath as Fluttershy squeezed. "Gee, shy. Ease up." Fluttershy realized her friend and both star-eye to at each other. Rainbow Dash breaks the gaze, and she sees Deathtrap is gone. She panics. Fluttershy grabs her friend's tail, and brings her to eye level. Rainbow Dash is still panicking. "Calm down, Dashy," she says with kindness in her tone. Rainbow Dash was flipping her lid. "Calm down. We have a murderous griffin in Cloudsdale," she yells. Fluttershy puts her hoof to Rainbow Dash mouth, and guides her to the broken entrance. Both see the brawl going on between Deathtrap and Ghost Pony Rider. Dash is lost for words. Her supernatural friend is back. "Who's winning?" Rainbow asked. A loud crash was then heard as Deathtrap was flung into the side of another building. Bruises and scraps across his head and torso. Fluttershy gives a confirming nod. "Who do you think?" Deathtrap was kneeling and breathing heavily. He was getting his butt kicked, badly. He felt his chest, a couple broken ribs. Deathtrap cursed under his breath, and looked up to see the flaming pony in front of him. He jacket covered in dirt into his skull with a few more cracks. Ghost Pony Rider was taking punishment, and it was showing. Ghost Rider chuckled, making Deathtrap look up with sweats coming down his face. "Had enough?" he asked. Deathtrap then remembered something. This made him chuckle, making Ghost Rider raise an eye socket. Ghost Rider was then knocked off by a huge right hook to his jaw as he was sent flying back. Deathtrap then took off into the sky, leaving the town behind. Ghost Pony Rider roared in anger, and took his chain out. He then began twirling the chain around faster and faster. Then lets it fly in a straight line toward Deathtrap. The spear end of the chain was plunged through Deathtrap's ankle, and he let out a shriek of pain. Ghost Rider laughs as he violently jerked back the chain, letting out a huge roar. "Come here." Deathtrap then comes flying toward the ground. He flies through the clouds and flies fast toward the rocky ground. With a loud crashing sound, Ghost Rider looks out of the hole, and sees the huge circle indent of Deathtrap, his lifeless body covering most of the circle. Ghost Rider chuckles, and turns to see his friends Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy. He chuckles as they smile in his presence. Grounded. Chapter 2, Long Time No See. The day was coming to a close as the sun set across the horizon with a golden-orange shade. No clouds on sight. Fluttershy, Rainbow Dash, and Ghost Pony Rider were on their way to meet up with the rest of the girls to give them the news. Ponyville was almost empty from the sky just starting to get dark. With the sun now gone, and the moon rising over the mountains, Ghost Pony Rider's fire was the only thing keeping Ponyville lit. The flames only covered so much of him and his friends. Ghost Pony Rider was like a lantern at this state. Both Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash saw this as well. They giggled slightly, catching Ghost Rider's attention. "What's so funny?" he asks, raising an eye socket. Both ponies turned and looked at him, shielding their eyes and face from the heat coming from their skeletal friend. Rainbow Dash was squinting her eyes trying to see Ghost Pony Rider, and not just his fire. Looks down to his feet, and sees his hoof trail, fiery prints with every step. "You're gonna light some pony's house on fire, dude." She looking into her forearm. Ghost Pony Rider looks himself over, and sees the hoof trail behind him. Feeling embarrassed, Ghost Pony Rider lowered his skull and groaned. The funny part was they were right. However, he could control this problem, but it's hard when wind is blowing, and entire blocks of houses are on each side of you. Ghost Rider groaned again in annoyance as the trio proceeded back to Fluttershy Cottage. The wind was slightly blowing under the moonlight and the crickets were less activate than they usually are. The night was silent, nothing but the hoof steps of the three ponies. The moonlight and Ghost Pony Rider's flame lit the cottage like a lantern. Ghost Pony Rider looked over the cottage with an expressionless look, his empty narrowing eye sockets looking over the wooden cottage. Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy noticed the light dimming as they turned to see their friend standing frozen. Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy walk over to their friend, who was still standing frozen. They tap him, and his shoulder, but nothing happens. Rainbow Dash begins to get agitated as she shacks Ghost Pony Rider. "Hey man, you alright?" she asks. Ghost Pony Rider shakes his head and stares at his friends, who are giving him worried looks. He chuckles and rubs the back of his skull in reassurance. He didn't know why he zoned out. It was almost like something was forming in his mind upon seeing the cottage. It was almost familiar to him. Like he had been there before, he couldn't remember. Ghost Rider Pony assures his friends everything is alright, and the three proceed inside. Ghost Pony Rider dims his light to lower the chance of a house fire. Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy sits on the sage comforter couch on one side of the living room. Ghost Pony Rider sits in a chair in front of his friends. A little white bunny then comes from behind the couch and gives Ghost Rider a threatening look. The bunny then comes in front of Ghost Pony Rider and jumps in the chair with him. Ghost Rider's eye sockets go wide and his upper and lower jawbone shrink. The bunny jumps on Ghost Rider's face, causing to jump off again. It began dancing silly as it tried to kill the fire on its hands. Rainbow Dash begins laughing, and Fluttershy attending to her rabbit friend. Ghost Pony Rider sits still with a confused look on his skull. Meanwhile, somewhere in the Everfree forest, Deathtrap limps with a shattered leg as he walks through the dark and creepy forest in the middle of the night. The air was cold and the wind was getting aggressive. Deathtrap was holding his side, trying to keep blood from leaking out of his side. He groaned and grunted as he limped through the forest, the moonlight casting a shadow over him. He then collapses on a tree stump in the middle of an open field. The field was shaped in a large disfigured oval with flowers and fireflies hovering over them. Deathtrap looks up at the moon as he could feel his vision start to fade. He was dying a fast death. Sitting here, dying of blood loss, thinking if he could survive. What he thought of made him smile. If I survive tonight, I'm gonna get that punk for costing me my money. Deathtrap then feels his consciousness start to fade as his head slumped over his shoulders. A dark figure had been watching over the dead griffin for a while now, and she has seen enough. The dark figure walks over the griffin and touches his chest. The griffin corpse starts to violently twitch and shack as the dark figure stepped back from the corpse. Deathtrap's eyes lit up with a lurid glow as he roared with fury. Deathtrap was breathing heavily as he coughed up a black substance. He looks up to see a gray pony with pure black eyes and black mane with a fancy haircut. She had a sinister smile on her face as Deathtrap towered over her. "Oi! What gives?" Deathtrap yells. The pony is unscathed as she chuckles at the black griffin. Deathtrap attempts to grab the figure, before she vanishes into black smoke with a loud laughter following it. Deathtrap looked around aimlessly, trying to find the pony. She then appeared behind him, kicking him hard enough with one leg, to send him flying toward a tree. The tree was broken into and Deathtrap was rubbing his head. However, he didn't feel pain when he hit the tree. He barely felt it. The pony then reappeared in front of him with a devilish smile. Her voice was light with a lustful tone to it. "What do you think?" she asks. "What did you do to me?" Deathtrap asked, looking himself over. The pony didn't answer. Instead, she sat next to Deathtrap and continued smiling and looking into the forest. Let's start with introduction. I'm Blackhead. Chapter 3, Painted Black. Everfree Forest, 3 hours later. "So, what you're saying is that I'm better now?" Blackhead has been going for hours about how, after she touched Deathtrap, gave him incredible powers to use for his own deeds. Being the blood-hungry mercenary Deathtrap is, it was no doubt the smile on his face was one of pure evil. He chuckled and looked to see a puddle of water nearby. He gets up and walks over to the puddle. When he looks in, all he sees is his own reflection. Curious, Deathtrap starts to mess around with his face, pulling, stretching, making weird noises. When he finished, nothing had changed. He turned to Blackhead, who still had that sinister smile on her face. Her eyes were narrowed in a way that made a chill run up Deathtrap's spine. It was clear she had done this before, but when? She was loving the reaction Deathtrap was giving off. "I don't look or feel different," said Deathtrap, prying one of his eyelids open. Blackhead simply walked next to him and stared into the puddle with him. Deathtrap gave a worried look as she still had that smile on her face. It wasn't starting to annoy Deathtrap, but it's starting to scare him. He looked back to look at Blackhead only to see she disappeared. Deathtrap looks around nervously, trying to look for the gray pony. He hears bubbling. Furious bubbling as if something was boiling in a pot. He turns and looks below him to see the puddle turning black and the water becoming thicker. Deathtrap lowers his head to the puddle, keeping a safe distance of course. Blackhead's face then appears in the puddle, making Deathtrap jump. "You see, Deathtrap, I'm no ordinary pony," Blackhead says, giggling. "Well, you got that right, mate. So what gives? Giving me these new powers. What do you want out of me?" said Deathtrap, crossing his arms and narrowing his eyes. Blackhead laughs again, and she disappears from the puddle. The puddle returns to normal, as if nothing happened. Deathtrap looks around again. The wind starts to pick up speed. The air starts to freeze. Deathtrap starts to sweat in his fur as he looks around furiously. He then jumps again when seeing Blackhead in front of him. Blackhead laughs again, and the sight of fear. "I want you to serve me in my quest," she says, grinning. Unimpressed, Deathtrap gets up and stares the pony down. She doesn't faze and her grin hasn't shrunk. Deathtrap lets out an annoyed breath of sir through his nose. "Listen, lass, I don't serve nobody unless they pay me," he says, grabbing the gray pony in his talon. Blackhead begins to laugh again, as if she was enjoying this. Deathtrap, having enough of this nonsense, attempts to slice the pony with his talon across the throat. He swings. Blackhead disappears into a cloud of black smoke. Deathtrap lets out a puff of annoyance. Blackhead begins taunting him from the shadows. "You're really a rebel, aren't you?" she says. "Yeah, I am. So what? I hate rebels." Deathtrap finds himself flying into a boulder and slamming into it, making a huge crack on the rock. Normally that kind of horse would have killed him. Deathtrap collects himself and pries himself off the boulder. He pries off, only to get batted by a tree. He flies into a whole row of trees, before landing on his back. He looks to see Blackhead with a huge tentacle protruding from her back. Deathtrap gets up and pulls out his sword. He stares at Blackhead as she approaches closer to him. "What are you?" he asks. Blackhead swings the tree with force as Deathtrap swung his sword, slicing the tree in half. Thinking he is safe, Deathtrap starts to run toward Blackhead. He readies the sword behind him as Blackhead pulls 2 more trees from the ground with more black tentacles. Deathtrap jumps. Blackhead swings the trees. Deathtrap swings his sword with fury as he cuts the trees to pieces. Out of nowhere, another tree comes and slams into Deathtrap, sending him crashing to the ground. He tries to get up, but is held down by the black tentacles. Blackhead then approaches from the shadows and stands on top of Deathtrap. She laughs as Deathtrap struggles to get free. He eventually gives in. Blackhead, seeing defeat, lowers her head to eye level with Deathtrap. "I'm the thing you should be afraid of at night." The night was drawing to a close as Ghost Pony Rider was staring outside the main room window at Fluttershy's cottage. He didn't remember how long it has been since he sat down on this spot. He sighed and rubbed his cranium. He was confused. Why does it feel like something is calling to him? Why has he been zoning out recently? Why doesn't he remember anything from his past? Sure, Ghost Pony Rider remembers his parents, his childhood, and who made him the monster he is in the first place, but why can't he remember anything before then? He didn't know, and it was starting to get on his nerves. He heard a slight cough behind him to find Fluttershy carrying a seed bag. She looks at him like a teenager got caught sneaking out from her house. "What are you doing?" he asks, lowering an eye socket. Fluttershy lets the seed bag from her mouth and smiles at her fiery friend. "Just going out and feeding the chickens," she says with a smile. Ghost Pony Rider's jawbone dropped. "Okay. 1. Why so damn early in the morning? 2. Why are you tiptoeing around me?" Fluttershy lets off a sly smile and blushes. She giggles nervously. Ghost Pony Rider rolls his eye sockets and walks toward Fluttershy. She scrambles, trying to get away from the fiery pony. "Shy, why the hell are you avoiding me?" he asks, getting closer to the cream-colored pony. "No. Wait. You're gonna make..." Fluttershy was stopped by a huge explosion of popcorn from the back. Fluttershy ducks in cover behind her couch. When she looks up, she begins to laugh. Ghost Pony Rider is covered in popcorn with raised eye socket. He brushes off the popcorn from his head. The seeds pop. Gotcha. Chapter 4, Stroke of 12. It was late afternoon, almost the evening. The sun just barely hitting the mountains. A shopping market in Ponyville was booming with business, with tellers selling food, housewares, and other items. The marketplace was nearly crowded with ponies. You could barely see the ground itself. Just the rushing hooves of other ponies. The noise of ponies talking and shouting for attention was easily noticeable from halfway across town. Inside that crowd was a white unicorn with a luscious purple mane with a black, hooded individual next to her. Rarity had met up with Ghost Pony Rider the other day, and was offered by her to come shopping. He agreed, knowing it would get him out of Fluttershy's cottage for a day. The hoodie was wearing covered his entire skull, showing nothing inside it. Rarity looks over to her friend in astonishment. It was in the middle of summer, and he was wearing a hood. "Aren't you hot in that, darling?" she says, looking into the hood. Ghost Pony Rider turns his head Rarity and chuckles. The moment was funny to him. Other ponies were giving him the exact look. "Nope. 'Cause I don't have skin, or hell even organs, I can't really sweat." Rarity's curiosity has now skyrocketed. A million questions now flooded her mind as her and her friend walked down the marketplace. One stuck out the most though. She was a bit embarrassed to ask it, seeing how she didn't know what reaction she would get out at him. "What do you do when you need to urinate then?" she asks, blushing. Ghost Pony Rider stops, and soon does Rarity stops in her tracks. Ghost Pony Rider starts to chuckle as ponies look at him with his odd-sounding laughter. It was deep like an animal's. He stops and looks back up at Rarity. "It's awesome, it's like a flamethrower, you know," he says, mimicking the moment. Rarity felt her face turn cherry as Ghost Rider began to mimic how he urinates. making a flamethrower sound, while shaking his torso in all directions. Rarity couldn't help but start laughing like a monkey at the sight, and soon Ghost Rider joined her. The two were given odd looks as other ponies passed by them, thinking they had lost their minds. They were half right. Their laughing fest ended with both taking a heavy deep breaths as they collected themselves, Rarity wiping tears from her eyes. She then sees the stand she was looking for. It was brightly colored with all sorts of different fabrics and other knitting tools. Rarity happily grabs her friend by the arm and quickly gallops over to the sound. She comes to a stop in front of the stand, Ghost Rider landing skull first on the ground with a thud. Rarity happily goes on with the teller, while Ghost Pony Rider picks up himself. "Hello Miss Rarity, anything that pleases you today?" "Oh, nothing special. Do you have those delicate fabrics I ordered?" Rarity asks. Ghost Pony Rider takes this time to take himself away from the two. He looks around and sees something odd. A trio of Pegasus ponies with a tall red one in the middle. He had a flowing mohawk that was black with red inner color. His cutie mark made Ghost Pony Rider narrow his eyes. It was nailed with an eye through it, surrounded by barbed wire. The other ponies were brown and blue. The trio began walking toward a crowded part of the marketplace. Ghost Rider could see the look of evil in the tall one's eyes. He begins to follow the trio. Rarity looks back, after dealing with the teller, to see her friend has disappeared. Ghost Pony Rider follows. They head into an alleyway. Ghost Rider, trying not to look strange, leaned up against a wall where the trio had headed. He could hear what they were talking about. "Stroke, are you sure this is a good idea?" a female asks. "Yeah, what if that Ghost Pony Rider guy comes?" a male asks. A loud laugh was heard deeper inside the alley. The one called Stroke cleared his throat. His throat was light, sounding a bit psychotic in the mix. Ghost Pony Rider didn't like this situation. It didn't help the tall pony inside was called Stroke. "Of course it's a good idea guys, and don't worry about old Bonehead," Stroke says with a bit of cockiness. Ghost Pony Rider figures this guy was just insane. His voice said it all. He decides to listen in more, to see what Stroke's plan is. It was what he was expecting. "We're just gonna kill everyone on the marketplace, to make a name for ourselves." Both of the other ponies gulped and nodded at the plan. Ghost Pony Rider decided he had heard enough. He quickly turns the corner and coughs, catching the attention of the three Pegasus. "I don't suppose you have a back plan in case I did show up, eh?" he says, smiling under his hood. The three ponies look in confusion at the hooded pony in front of them. Stroke seemed the most annoyed by the event. He was worried the pony had been listening to everything that they discussed. Stroke was angry. "Okay punk, you have 1 minute to run before." Stroke was cut off by Ghost Pony Rider pulling down his hood to show himself. Stroke had a look of utter terror on his face, and the other two looked as if they pissed themselves. The trio backed up slowly as Ghost Pony Rider walked closer to the bunch. The other two ponies were pleading for their lives, but Stroke was just in shock. He didn't actually think the monster would show up. Trying to think of a solution, Stroke looks around for an escape. He sees an old fire hydrant at the entrance of the alleyway. He smiles and picks up the closest thing he could find, a medium-sized rock. He tosses it, and misses just past the rider's head. Ghost Rider looks back, and chuckles at the attempted fight back. "Really? That the best you?" Ghost Rider was cut off by Stroke flying kick him in the jaw, making him fly back into the hydrant. The hydrant burst, spraying water everywhere. Ghost Rider could feel the water douse his fire as nothing but his skull was left. Stroke and the others made it this moment to make a quick getaway. They hustled under the rainfall as Ghost Pony Rider slowly got up. His fire started back up, causing the raindrops to evaporate when hitting him. He then notices his jawbone is out of place. With the crack of the bone, he fixes it, narrowing his eye sockets. Ghost Pony Rider follows. He isn't pleased. Stroke and the others were a good few meters away and still running, when they stopped suddenly. The other ponies look back, and see Stroke frozen with a demented smile. The two other ponies look and worry at their boss. Stroke laughs. "I just hit Ghost Pony Rider, and it hurt him." The event was getting to Stroke. He wasn't thinking straight. He has gone insane. Stroke began walking back toward the scene, to finish what he started. He wanted to make a name for himself. This was the way. The other two ponies were trying to stop him as they begged and pleaded to him. Stroke wasn't having it. He kicked one of the ponies in the throat, and punched the other in the gut. He then proceeded to beat the other two to death. Once the deed was done, Stroke looked over himself. He was covered in the pony's blood, and he was wide-eyed with excitement. Stroke then laughs an evil laugh into the sky. Onlookers began to form as they observed the scene in front of them. Stroke looks back, and spots a mare in the crowd. She was pregnant, 3 months from the looks of it. Stroke smiles with evil as he leaps for the mare. She screams, but Stroke is stopped by a chain whipping him across the face. The crowd looks back, and sees Ghost Pony Rider walking up with anger in his skull. "You're him?" the mare asks. "Yeah, I am." Stroke comes from nowhere and tackles Ghost Pony Rider to the ground. He then begins to punch the hell out of Rider. Ghost Rider kicks Stroke off with both his back hooves, making a roll movement, flinging Stroke into a food cart. Stroke quickly gets up and quickly takes off toward Ghost Pony Rider, who is ready with the spear end of his chain. Ghost Rider dodges the strike and he once again shoots his chain fast toward the speeding Stroke. Stroke looks behind him, and sees the spear coming. He takes off upwards, and the spear hits a support beam for a stand. Ghost Rider curses under his breath as he sees Stroke coming in hot toward the crowd. He then gets another idea. Ghost Rider grips his chain and strokes his chain with both hooves, making the ends change to spiked clubs. He begins to twirl the chain around like a lasso as Stroke comes in faster. As if in slow motion, Ghost Pony Rider swings the spiked club end towards Stroke. It makes contact with the side of his face, impaling it with the spikes at the ends. Stroke is then flung into a series of stands where he lay critically injured. Ghost Pony Rider walks toward him, and so do the rest of the crowd. Ghost Rider sticks a hoof up, to motion the crowd not to get any closer. Stroke is breathing heavily, and blood is running down his face. Ghost Rider then grips Stroke by his neck and lifts him up by his collar. Judgment for his crimes are upon him. Your soul is stained by the blood of the innocent. Feel their pain. Stroke is then taken through a series of visions through Ghost Pony Rider's eye sockets as he sees all the blood he has shed. From rape, murder, to stealing, Stroke was experiencing all the torture of his victims. When the deed was done, Stroke had a look of utter terror on his face, and was crying from what he saw. With the job done, Ghost Pony Rider turns to the crowd who were in shock and awe at the scene. "Move along, nothing more to see." Ghost Pony Rider walks past the crowd of ponies and ends up back with Rarity. She gives him a worried look. Soon after, police arrive and take Stroke away. "What did you do to him?" she asks. Pennant stare. "My most powerful attack." Chapter 5, Royal Prison Break. Canterlot Dungeon. A few hours later. No light. Not even a candlestick. It was pitch black inside the dungeon in the late night. An area of the dungeon where even the moon couldn't reach. No furnishings. Just solid stone floor. The iron bars keeping the prisoner inside were tripled in size. Built to keep a dragon inside it. It was a medium-sized cell. Built for 2 ponies. A lone Pegasus sits in the corner of the dark room in fetal position. His red fur coated in his own feces. A scared look on his face. Stroke hadn't moved since he was put in the cell. He hadn't eaten since yesterday. What he saw inside those empty eye sockets had done more damage to his mental state than it already was. What he saw made Stroke think about what he was doing with his life. He enjoyed it. He loved causing others pain. He loved killing ponies for his own sick games. He loved the feeling of assaulting a lone mare inside an alleyway. He loved them all. Stroke started to laugh like the maniacal evil pony he was. A soft cough was heard from behind him. He turned his head to see the Lord of Chaos himself, Discord, giving him a huge grin on his face. Stroke got up from his curling position, and placed his head on the bars. Well, what have we here?" Stroke says with a smile. "Stroke, I presume," Discord said, leaning into the bars. Stroke let out an evil chuckle, and stared at Discord. "In the flesh. To what I owe the pleasure, Discord." Discord clicked his fingers, and in the blink of an eye furnishings appeared inside the jail cell. The length of the cell grew longer, and it was made into a fancy dinner table. Stroke sat at the table and soon Discord appeared in a cloud of pink smoke in front of him. With another click of his fingers, an entire banquet appeared before the two. A wide selection of fruits and vegetables. Stroke didn't waste time as he went to town on the food. Discord sat back and watched. "I just wanted to thank you for the marvelous show you put on with my dear friend Bonehead," he said, chuckling. Stroke nearly shocked when Discord mentioned Ghost Pony Rider. That was something he wasn't expecting. Stroke swallowed his mountain of food in his mouth, and gave the Lord of Chaos a confused look. "How do you know him?" he asks. Discord clicks his fingers again, and this time a huge projector and screen appeared in the room. Discord pressed the slide button, and began the story. Stroke, with Popcorn and Hoof. Years ago, a small pony was bullied, because he hadn't gotten his cutie mark yet. The kids who bullied him were different though. They were violent, built for chaos, and ready to take a life without hesitation. One day, something went wrong. The bullies were more aggressive than they usually were. They cornered him, beat him nearly half to death, told to never return home. Then, one day, he found me. The little colt begged for a chance for revenge. I gave it to him. He used his gift to take revenge on the bullies. However, there is always a catch when dealing with Discord. After I had given him this wish, another child approached me and begged for the same thing. I granted hers. She became overpowered with darkness and soon took up the name Blackhead. This lit a shout and Stroke hadn't noticed he was eating the popcorn box as well. He spits it out as Discord snaps his fingers to show a picture of Blackhead. Stroke whistles and howls like a dog at the picture. Discord rolls his eyes. He then grabbed Stroke by the back of the neck and placed him on a lone stool in the now dark room. Everything had vanished. It was nothing but darkness again. Discord was gone, but spoke from the wind. "She is coming for you, Stroke. Be prepared." Stroke was now waiting patiently for his rescuer. The dark room started to engulf Stroke again as he waited. He heard a sound. A moan in the dark dungeon. Stroke felt a shiver go up his spine as he gulped at the creepy sound. In the pitch darkness you can't tell what is making the noise. Stroke felt sweat drop down his cheek as the pitch darkness felt colder. Stroke then felt a hoof go down on his shoulder. Its cold touch was enough to make him jump. He back against the bars. He looked to see the mare from the slideshow. Her soulless black eyes starting into his. Stroke then began to feel weird. He felt his head get heavier and his eyelids shut. Blackhead whistled, and Deathtrap emerged from the darkness, and slumped him on her shoulder. "Remind me, why do we need this guy?" he asks. Blackhead smiles and turns her head to Deathtrap. "He is part of my plan." Deathtrap scratches his head. He didn't quite know what the plan was in the first place. He was sure Blackhead explained it at one time, he just wasn't paying attention. Blackhead sees the dumb look in his eye and groans. She stops and turns to face Deathtrap. Both inside the main hallway of the Castle of Canterlot by now. The plan was to kill Ghost Pony Rider, remember? Deathtrap is even more confused now. He wanted just as much to get even with the Bonehead as it is, but why does Blackhead need to kill him with 3 players? "Call it personal," she says before turning back around. Both were caught off guard by a squad of guards coming to them, each carrying swords in their mouths, some using magic to lift them. They surround the two with swords pointed. Blackhead gives an unimpressed look as what looked like a captain came to front. "By order of the princess, you are ordered to give that prisoner back, and turn yourselves in. Guards, come closer, or die." Blackhead and Deathtrap smile. Deathtrap lets down Stroke's knocked out body. The guards then charge the two, but are quickly overpowered by the brutal attacks of Blackhead and Deathtrap. Blackhead uses her tentacles to rip the guards in half, and slams them into the walls leaving huge dents. Deathtrap uses his sharp talons and his sword to turn some of the guards to pieces, with torn body parts across the floor and blood turning the ground into a red carpet. The two Dark Ones proceeded to carry their friend from the castle. Everfree Forest. Morning. Stroke wakes up from his deep sleep, the morning sun heating his face. He notices 2 figures standing in front of him. A griffin, and a mare. The same one that knocked him out. He quickly gets up and faces the two. Blackhead raises a hoof to stop Stroke's rushing. Calm yourself, Stroke. We have much to talk about. Chapter 6, The Angle Within. Morning. Twilight's treehouse. With morning tea brewing in the kettle, Twilight walks into the main room where all of her friends were present. Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie were discussing new prank ideas. Spike was admiring Rarity as usual. Applejack and Fluttershy were talking with Ghost Pony Rider, who was unusually quiet. Twilight noticed this, and patted Ghost Rider on the shoulder. He turns to look at her with wide eye sockets. Twilight gives a worried look. "Are you okay, Ghost Rider?" she asks. Ghost Rider gives her expressionless look with his skull. "I'm fine, Twilight. Just thinking about something." All the main six and Spike gave him a concerned look. All conversations had stopped. The room was silent. Ghost Pony Rider moaned from the silence. He didn't want to talk about it. Matter of fact, he didn't want to think about it. Ever since that night of nightmares. The night where Ghost Pony Rider failed to avenge a life he cared deeply for. Gone. It was eating at his bony heart to its core. He wanted revenge for her death. That would be going against his bitter judgment. Revenge wasn't in Ghost Pony Rider's vocabulary. However, he wanted to make an exception. With the group of ponies and the little dragon in front of him, Ghost Pony Rider prepared himself to explain. The group watched as Ghost Rider went to the front of the group to tell his tale. "A few months ago, from my time of absence here in Ponyville, I went on a routine assignment with Maribel. It was just common crook report. Nothing we couldn't handle. This one was different though." The group leaned in. "We ended up at some sort of power plant in the middle of nowhere. The guy was inside. Once we were inside, we found the gal I mean. She was nothing like I have ever experienced. Her power, skills, and how brutal her attacks were. We fought for hours, before she ended up injuring me quite badly. I was defenseless as she went in for the kill. Then, it happened." The group gulped at the foreshadow. Twilight spoke up from the group. "What happened?" Ghost Pony Rider narrowed his eye sockets at the floor and growled. The group tensed. Ghost Pony Rider is terrifying when he's angry. His fire grew larger and his skull started turning a darker shade, almost black. The main six prepared for the worst as Ghost Rider's flame grew larger and his skull turned black. His voice grew deeper and more intimidating. Fluttershy hid behind Rainbow Dash as the fire engulfed the house from the inside. She took her away from Emmy. He screamed. The fire grew, and soon the whole house was engulfed in fire like hell itself. Ghost Pony Rider looked up to his friends, the fear in their faces. This all was too familiar to him. He stopped his temper loss, and regained control of himself. His fire shrunk to head level and his skull returned to normal. The fear inside his friend's eyes didn't fade. Ghost Pony Rider gave a shamed look on his skull and groaned. "That's what happened. She took Maribel away from me." The group gasped. Ghost Pony Rider's closest friend was dead. No wonder he has been on edge lately. He was pained by the loss. Twilight approached her friend, and wrapped him in a tight hug. The burning fire on her skin drew tears to Twilight's eyes. Soon the rest of the group joined in, and wrapped Ghost Rider in group hug. He whispered, "Thanks, girls." The moment was interrupted, once a sudden crash through the treehouse wall. The group was sent flying into the opposite wall. Ghost Pony Rider jumped to his hooves, and readied himself for anything that would come through the smoke. He pulled his chain from his leg, and whipped it on fire. The sorry fool who burst through his friend's home was going to pay. A large 2 pairs of black tentacles came rushing from the smoke, grabbing Ghost Pony Rider by his front legs. They pulled him toward the outside where a huge talon formed in a fist smashed him on the nose. A back leg then kicked him in the side, sending him flying into another building. Ghost Rider rubbed his head, and looked to see his attackers. Once a nightmare has become reality. Deathtrap, Stroke, and a mare he didn't recognize. "Just who the hell are you three?" Ghost Rider asks, swinging his chain at them. Deathtrap grabs the chain, and pulls him toward the group. Deathtrap lands another heavy punch to the skull and Stroke uppercuts him. Ghost Pony Rider hits the ground hard as he feels his skull crack. Ghost Pony Rider attempts to get up, but gets stomped on by Deathtrap. He laughs as Ghost Pony Rider tries to break free. The mayor from before walks to the downed Ghost Pony Rider and smiles. He growls under Deathtrap's talon. "Oh, don't be mad, dear," Blackhead says. The same black tentacles from before emerged from her back as she pulls him from Deathtrap's grip. She wraps him round like a snake inside the tentacles. Ghost Pony Rider could feel the pressure on his body crushing him. He roared in pain. The trio laughs. "What do you punks want?" "What we want is your death, ya little menace." Deathtrap laughs. "Yeah, we want to use your bones as toothpicks," Stroke says. Blackhead and Deathtrap give Stroke an embarrassed look. Stroke was nuts, no doubt about that. Blackhead then turns to Ghost Rider and smiles at him. She pulls him in closer to her. Ghost Rider struggles to get loose but is unsuccessful. "Don't you remember me, dear?" she asks. "I don't know. Should I?" Ghost Rider says, giving Blackhead an attitude. Blackhead laughs and slams Ghost Pony Rider into the ground, causing more of his skull to crack. Blackhead puts herself on top Ghost Pony Rider and wraps tighter. Ghost Rider groans in pain. "I'm surprised you don't. Here, you'll make it simple. Remember your little friend who I ripped to pieces?" Right then memories came flooding back to Ghost Pony Rider like a ton of bricks. He remembered the look on her face when Maribel was torn to pieces. He remembered the smile on the bitch's face who had killed his friend. Right then, something snapped inside Ghost Pony Rider. A barrel of emotions that he kept hidden away had been smashed. He exploded. A huge fiery blast engulfed the front of the treehouse. The Dark Ones were knocked off their feet from the blast. Blackhead stood up, while Deathtrap and Stroke tried to get up. Blackhead was frowning at the blazing inferno in front of her. This was not expected. "What is this?" Ghost Pony Rider emerged from the flaming inferno with his fire brick red and his skull charcoal black. His eyes had fierce red pupils inside them. The face of pure evil. The skull of anger. Ghost Pony Rider has lost control to his anger. Deathtrap and Stroke observed this sight with Blackhead as Ghost Pony Rider walked towards them with a firewall behind him. Ghost Pony Rider spoke with an evil tone in his voice. "Hungry." Blackhead smiled. She could use this to her advantage. Deathtrap and Stroke were petrified. "What the hell do we do now?" Deathtrap yelled. "Don't ask me, you overgrown bird." Stroke panicked. "Shut it, you two." Deathtrap and Stroke looked over to Blackhead, who was giving a stern look. "We need to leave. We're done here." The group then takes off into the forest, leaving a demonic being with an entire wildfire behind him. He was getting out of control. Blackhead had got him to lose control. Ghost Pony Rider was roaring as he whipped his chain and fired molten balls at houses. He was causing Armageddon inside Ponyville. The main six emerged from the treehouse with a few scraps and bruises. When they saw the blazing inferno, utter shock was all they could feel. Ponies were running for their lives out of the town. Ghost Pony Rider wasn't letting up. He was blasting and slashing the buildings to pieces. He roared so loud you could hear it from Canterlet. In this case, someone did. Ghost Pony Rider ravaged through of the town, before he stumbled up in the main six and Spike, running around. He roared, getting their attention. "Ghost Rider!" Twilight yells. The rest of the group runs toward him, but they're interrupted by a flying chain nearly hitting Twilight in the face. It passes by her face with fierce speed as it misses, and hits a building behind her. The rest stop. Rainbow Dash flies up to the front and shouts at the monster. "What the hey was that for?" "Hungry." Ghost Pony Rider moans. "Hungry. Do you want a cupcake?" Pinky asks. "Hungry for souls." Pinky's hair grouped and soon the rest of the group gasped as Ghost Pony Rider gasped. They then ran away from their friend with fear. He was corrupted by his anger and lust for revenge. He forgot who his friends were, or if he had any. Ghost Pony Rider traps the main six in a blazing ring of fire as he walks through it. A lunar and solar blast knocked Ghost Pony Rider off his hooves, and slamming into a building. Princess Celestia and Princess Luna floated down from the sky. The main six felt relieved, both with angry looks on their faces. "Princess Celestia, why are you?" "No time to explain. Get your friends to safety." The main six quickly ran to a safe distance as the princess went to work. Ghost Pony Rider roared with anger that made the ground shake. Both princes unmoved by the sound. "You need to calm down, Ghost Rider," Luna said. "Luna's right, Rider. You need to channel your anger," Celeste added. Ghost Pony Rider roared, and the princess blasted him again. This time looked as if it was unaffected. He roared again. He whipped his chain again and only made contact with the barrier shield from Luna. He then blasted a molten ball from his hoof, and fired it at Luna. The shield broke, and Luna flew backwards on the ground. Celeste gave Ghost Rider an angry look, and blasted him again, this time sending him flying. Ghost Rider whipped his chain forward like a spear, and made contact with Celeste's chest. Blood emerged from the wound and Ghost Pony Rider pulled the chain back with force. "Come here," he screamed. He pulled Celeste toward him, and swung his hoof, and made contact with her cheek, sending her flying on Luna. As he approached to make the final blow, he was caught off guard by another blast of magic from behind. He turned and roared at his attacker. Twilight had fired a blast at him. The rest of her friends behind her. Ghost Pony Rider roared, and started to run toward them. All the 6 friends prepared for the worst as Ghost Pony Rider ran fast toward them. Just before a blow could be made, he stopped. Twilight and her friends looked up, and saw he had stopped. "Friends." The fire started to grow smaller and his skull was returning to normal. His eyes were returning to normal. With a sad look on his face, he backed away from his friends. "I'm so sorry." Ghost Pony Rider backed away, before hitting something behind him. He turned to see Celeste with the spear wound in her chest. Luna with scorch mark on her chest. "No. Ghost Pony Rider. It's okay. You weren't in control. You were played," Celeste says, giving him a sorry look. "Played?" His eye sockets went wide. "Black had wanted to manipulate your anger and turn you against everyone. She played your memories when she killed Maribel." Ghost Pony Rider was putting everything together. His anger had gotten the best of him. Because of it, an entire town was nothing but ash. Chapter 7, Ain't No Rest for the Wicked. Canterlot. The next day, the news of a burned-down Ponyville swept Equestria by storm. It spread faster than a pack of rabbits. Soon, all of Equestria knew Ghost Pony Rider's name and what he was capable of. Blood, death, and destruction are what ponies thought of when his name came up. They were half right about him. Ghost Pony Rider knew he would never win the trust of Equestria back after his little temper tantrum. The whole world knew he was monster then. He was used to being feared though. He didn't like it, but he was used to it. Ghost Pony Rider was welcomed by Princess Celestia and Luna to stay at the castle, so they and the main 6 can try and clear his name. If he needed to go out, he needed to wear a cloak. He also needed to hide his chain inside the cloak to avoid suspicion. Today, he needed to get supplies to fix his chain. It was getting rusty and battle damaged, and it needed to be fixed. Canterlot's marketplace was somewhat full for the day. Most of the stores are indoors, so it made Ghost Pony Rider nervous. He never was an indoor person. He was more outgoing, and loved to run in the wilderness. The feeling of the wind against his skull made his day. Ghost Pony Rider needed to hold his hood, to keep it from flying off, because of the wind. It was bad enough that Equestria was afraid of him, but it would even worse if he ran into the rioters who wanted him executed for causing so much destruction. Unfortunately, some of those ponies were inside Canterlot, so being seen as himself was out of the question. He decided to use the bits he earned from his contracts to help get himself some new gear. Ghost Pony Rider didn't notice he walked into an arms dealer's shop. Swords and guns ran across the walls like video game shop. Ghost Pony Rider felt like a kid in a candy store. He went to the front desk where he was met by the dealer. His voice deep and full of pride. "Welcome to Ammu-Nation. I'm Carter. What ya need, son?" "I need something powerful," Ghost Rider says, leaning in. Carter leaned in as well, and gave a concerned look. It was like he was asked this before. Ghost Pony Rider looks behind him and sees it. It was a single-barrel shotgun that looked like it belonged in a Western movie. Ghost Pony Rider's skull smiled under the hood of the cloak as he turned his attention back towards Carter. Ghost Pony Rider pulls out his bit bag and proceeds to place 100 bits on the table and points at the shotgun. Carter looks back and smiles. He takes the bits and takes the shotgun off the wall. He wraps it in a box and gives to Ghost Rider. You and I will get along just fine. Ghost Pony Rider hurried to his best ability to try and get back to his room without leaving a trail of fire behind him. He opened and slammed the door behind him with a small chuckle. He ripped open the package like a child on his birthday. He held the shotgun in his hoof with pride. He then gets an idea. Ghost Pony Rider concentrates his powers and focuses it into the shotgun. The shotgun begins to transform into a demonic-looking shotgun with silver-looking metal and fire coming from every hole. A small roar erupted Ghost Pony Rider as he completed the process. He then threw off his hood to observe the shotgun with his own eye sockets, a small smile on his jaw. This new weapon would help him in the future when killing the Dark Ones. He wanted to make those bastards pay for what they did to him. Mostly her. Blackhead was Ghost Pony Rider's main agenda to track to hell. Deathtrap and Stroke he could care less about. Blackhead was priority. She would die for what she has done to ponies, and for what she did to Maribel. He would be certain of that. Watch out, you gray bitch, I'm coming for you. Ghost Pony Rider then hears a small cough come from behind him. He hides the shotgun in his jacket as he turns to see Princess Luna standing at his door, a confused look on her face. "Oh, come in, Princess," he says, bowing. With respect for her royalty shown, Luna walks into the room with a small smile. Although she appreciates the gesture, Luna felt as though it was needed for him. She pats him on the shoulder and reassures him. "No need for the bowing, Rider, I'm your friend." Ghost Pony Rider nods at him, and Luna look into the night sky. Ghost Rider's fire illuminating the dark room. "You're going for revenge, aren't you?" Luna asks. Ghost Pony Rider went wide-eyed and answered with a grunt. "You know revenge isn't your thing, right?" "I know. It isn't for revenge though," he says, narrowing his eyes. Luna gives Ghost Pony Rider a questioning look. "If it wasn't for revenge, what was it for?" "It's for the ponies they've killed over their years." Luna giving an agreeing nod, and departed the room with a friendly goodbye to Ghost Pony Rider. He was left in the room alone with his thoughts. He then thought of something to do. His anger is what made him lose control the first time. If he happened to control it, he could use it to his advantage. Ghost Pony Rider crossed his legs, and straightened his back. He placed his arms on top of his knees. He then started channeling energy from his powers. His fire began to grow crimson. He could feel his anger build. His skull started to become black and red pupils formed inside his eye sockets. Soon fire grew inside the room. Soon the entire room was engulfed in flames. However, nothing was catching on fire. He was doing it. He was controlling his anger. Ghost Pony Rider started softly chanting some unknown phrase. The fire began shrinking, and his skull returned to normal. It was done. There would be no playing with his emotions the next time he met the Dark Ones. He did realize it was war. He had to be the survivor. Chapter 8, From Dusk Until Dawn, Part 1. Canterlot, Princess Celestia's office. The mountain of paperwork on the desk is annoying. Nobody liked doing paperwork, not even Princess. Paperwork to Princess Celestia is torture. If torture meant writing on a document to help a framed paranormal hero, Princess Celestia forgot how long she had been at the papers. It was so much to do in little time it was ridiculous. The bags under her eyes were a dead giveaway she was about to collapse. As she wrote on the paper document, she saw the written reports of Ghost Pony Rider's attack. All of them weren't good. "Arrest that monster. He nearly killed everyone in Ponyville." One said. "Execute that thing. He deserves to die." Another said, "If he isn't arrested by dawn, you'll make sure your ass is in court for keeping him safe." Another said. That last one made Celestia annoyed. Ponies were taking the attack all the wrong way. If only they saw what she saw, their minds would be changed. However, she cannot deny that Ghost Pony Rider is dangerous, even if he isn't angry. Though she did not want to place him inside another trial, fearing what he will do this time. He almost killed her, and her sister the first time. What would happen, if it happened again? She didn't know, and she wanted to keep it that way. She slammed a huge Denny stamp on the documents, and proceeded to more complaints. Then she got to more interesting documents, letters from children, who were either saved or seen Ghost Pony Rider in action. Celestia smiled as she read the letters. Some came with drawings. Dear Princess Celestia, please don't send Ghost Pony Rider away from us. He is a hero, and he deserves to be free. Please don't send Ghost Rider to jail. He helped my family when a bad pony stole our money. Ghost Pony Rider is a good guy. He should go fight evil. Princess Celestia smiled as she observed the drawings of the different children who sent in drawings and letters to Ghost Pony Rider. She would make sure to give him these letters. She gathered what she needed, and made her way to Ghost Pony Rider's room. The long hallway was shining bright from the morning sunlight. Guards were making their rounds, and saluting the princess, when she passed by them. She came to a stop. To Ghost Pony Rider's room she knocked and waited for him. Nothing. She knocked again with more force. Nothing. Either he wasn't here at the moment, or he was asleep. She knocks again, but this time the door slowly opens. The door reveals nothing inside. The bed was made, the window was open, nothing looked out of the ordinary. Celestia then saw a framed photo on the desk in the corner of the room. It was a photo of a family with a fiery skeleton in the middle. An old pony with a gray beard and his wife with glasses was next to him on the left. On the right was Alona Mare with her daughter. On the bottom was a cursive written statement. It made Princess Celestia tear up. Unannounced to the princess, a pair of black eyes was staring at her from behind. Blaze Family Reunion. What's left? Canterlot Marketplace. The marketplace was nearly empty. All sorts of booths were being taken down. It was almost eerie the marketplace was this empty. Ghost Pony Rider looked around under his hood. He and only Twilight and Spike were next to him. Twilight wanted to help Ghost Pony Rider fight the Dark Ones. Twilight recently found out that a book inside the library could help Ghost Pony Rider. Spike was on Ghost Pony Rider's back reading a paranormal book. Twilight gives him a baffled look. Spike, how long have you been reading that book? She asks. Since we left Ponyville, I think. He says, keeping his eyes on the book. Why? Since we met Ghost Pony Rider, I thought I'd research his history. He says, flipping the page. Ghost Rider raised an eye socket at Spike under his hood. He puffed through his nose opening. Fire comes through the opening. Spike jumps, causing him roll of his back, and land on his tail. Twilight and Rider laughed. Spike soon joins in on the laughter. After the little giggle fest, the trio move on to the library. Luckily, the library was open still. Twilight and guys began going through the library trying to find the book Twilight was searching for. Though Twilight knew what the book was, Ghost Pony Rider and Spike were doing through random books. Hours pass until Twilight calls from across the room, getting Spike and Ghost Rider's attention. They come to find her over a huge book. Gentlicles, I present the Book of Mystic Powers and Beings, she says with glee. Ghost Pony Rider and Spike give a surprised look, and lean into the book as Twilight explains the Dark One's powers. So by my understanding, the one known as Blackhead is using a demonic force of power called Kenaigen, which stands for Dark Force. It overwhelms the user, and corrupts them to pure evil. They are also known to corrupt others to the same force. There is no way to get rid of the power except one way: death. Ghost Pony Rider nods and narrows his eye sockets. Twilight continued. With these powers, the user is almost invincible. They are powerful beyond belief, and are known to be very hard to kill. However, there is a known way to kill her. The Tulin Inn. There is a location in the Everfree Forest, where a pool of cleansing is located. The pool exterminate any evil force with these. I would like known how you are going to get her, and her goons inside the pool. Ghost Pony Rider didn't know how he was gonna get Blackhead inside the pool, but he figured what he could do about Deathtrap and Stroke. They were nothing but punts. They didn't have as much power as her. They would be easy. He'll figure out a way. A sudden burst of the front door to the library made the entire group jump, flipping Ghost Pony Rider's hood and showing his skull. The guard who ran and ignored the skeleton as he approached Twilight, his voice in panic and in shock. Princess Twilight, have you seen Princess Celestia? Chapter 9, From Dusk Until Dawn, Part 2. Canterlot. A few minutes later. The loud galloping of an entire squad of ponies rang through the hallways of Canterlot. Twilight and hooded Ghost Pony Rider were in front of the squad. The entire castle was on alert. Guards were running through the hall searching for the missing princess. Princess Celestia was nowhere to be found. It was like she just disappeared into thin air. Guards were searching every room inside the castle. News hadn't reached the public yet, which was good. The news of the Dark Ones was enough. The public didn't need this news. Ghost Pony Rider started running faster from the group, leaving behind Fire Prince on the floor. He had an idea of where the princess was, but he didn't like the thought. Ghost Pony Rider suddenly darted from the group, heading into another corridor. Twilight and guards stopped and looked at the hooded pony. Twilight knew he had a hunch from the sudden change. Twilight ordered the guards to follow Rider as he ran faster. Soon, Ghost Pony Rider was good 2 yards away from the group. He suddenly stopped. As if they slid on a banana peel, Twilight and the guards crashed into each other in a mixed-match armor and weapons. Twilight gets up from the pile and stands next to Ghost Pony Rider. "What's wrong?" she asks. Ghost Pony Rider places his hoof to her mouth and makes a quieting sound. He turns to her with narrowed eye sockets. "I sense something inside my room. It's dark energy." Twilight then realizes where they were. In front of Ghost Pony Rider's room. Its lock was busted on the door and smelled of something putrid. Ghost Pony Rider grabbed a shotgun from his back, surprising Twilight and the guards. She would ask where he got that later. Ghost Pony Rider held the shotgun straight and slowly opened the door with his other hoof. He was taken off guard by the destruction of the room. Twilight held a hoof to her mouth. "Oh Faust, looks like a struggle went down here," Rider commented. Twilight and Ghost Rider looked through the destroyed room with care. The bed was messy, the floor had multiple weird stains on it. The desk was crushed from what looked like something heavy. The window at the end of it was shattered, blood on one of the shards. Ghost Pony Rider sniffed the blood, catching Twilight's attention. "Whose is that?" "Celestia's. My guess is something dragged her through the window, cutting her." Twilight gasped. "So the princess was kidnapped. By who though?" Ghost Pony Rider knew the answer. He may know of someone who can help find her. Without a warning to Twilight, Ghost Pony Rider shot his shotgun into the upper corner of the room. Twilight ducked, just barely avoiding the blast. A stream of blood and fire erupted from something hiding in the corner. He cried out in pain. "Son of a bitch! My wing!" Twilight turns to find Stroke holding a spot where a wing used to be. She frowns at the Pegasus as he rolls on the floor in pain. She then saw Ghost Pony Rider walk over to Stroke and began beating him to a bloody pulp. She wanted to stop him. She thought against it. Stroke yelled in mercy as Ghost Pony Rider struck him with heavy hits to his chest and face. Once the beating was done, Ghost Rider held Stroke up by his neck and slammed him into the wall. A huge crack imprinted on the wall. He snarled at Stroke as he fire grew. "Where is the princess?" Stroke was spitting out his own blood still. His breathing was heavy from a few broken ribs and a collapsed lung. "Go to hell," he says, smiling. Ghost Pony Rider growled as he squeezed his grip on Stroke's neck. Stroke began trying to pry from Ghost Rider's grip. Twilight put her hoof on Rider's shoulder. He turned with a pissed expression on his skull. He saw the caring look on Twilight's face and calmed down. He threw Stroke on the ground. "We'll make him give the information. Don't worry." Ghost Pony Rider groaned and his fire shrunk back down to normal. Both heard Stroke start laughing like a hyena. "Oh, isn't this cute? Lovebirds at their best." Twilight had enough. She kicked Stroke in his groin, making him quiver and faint. Ghost Pony Rider gives her a surprised look. As guards grab Stroke and haul him off to the dungeon, Princess Luna comes from behind the guards holding Stroke. She runs toward the two. "Has he given my sister's location?" she asks with worry. "No. Stubborn prick. I blew his wing off and beat his ass," Rider says with pride. Luna gives a twitchy-eyed look from the aggression and insanity in the sentence. Twilight quickly steps in. What he means to say is, "We think the Dark Ones have the princess." A small portion of her blood was found. Luna puts a hoof to her mouth and she gasps. The two then notices Ghost Pony Rider was nowhere in sight. They looked everywhere, before they noticed him back inside his room. He was holding a shattered picture frame. They come inside the room, and look over Ghost Rider's shoulder. Twilight and Luna gulp. "Those bastards," he says with rage. Ghost Pony Rider's hood was incinerated from his crimson fires. His breathing became heavy. His skull was pure black. Luna and Twilight prepared for another tantrum, but it didn't happen. Instead, Ghost Pony Rider got up, and reloaded his shotgun. He took another sniff from the shard of blood and narrowed his eye sockets. His skull and fire returned to normal. Both princes gave him fearful looks as he walked past them with a determined look. He was walking fast and Fire Prince were being left behind. They caught up to them. "Where are you going?" Luna asks. "To finish this with those assholes." "They crossed the fucking line." Rider spouts. "You didn't answer the question." Twilight adds. "I can track Celestia by her blood trail. I know her smell, and I'm going to where they have her." Luna jumps in front of Ghost Rider with a determined look. "Me and Twilight are coming with you," she says. Ghost Pony Rider gives a wide-eyed look, and Twilight stands next to Luna. "You do know what you're up against, right?" Rider asks. Both princes nod and Ghost Pony Rider gives a smile with his jawbone. The trio walk towards the edge of the castle. At the entrance, Ghost Pony Rider gives both of his companions a smile and they return the grin. Ghost Pony Rider then stares into the forest and laughs as the trio begins speeding toward their destination. Let's ride. Chapter 10, Last Ride. Everfree Forest. 3 ponies. 2 powerful princesses, and a fiery skeleton pony. The princesses were flying with great speed, but they couldn't keep up with Ghost Pony Rider as he was faster, leaving both in his dust. Fiery Hoof Prince were being left behind as Luna and Twilight followed him. There was no wind that night, no crickets. The night was clear with the moon shining bright in the sky. The air was cold against Luna and Twilight's muzzles. Ghost Pony Rider began running faster toward a swampy area of the Everfree Forest. Luna and Twilight exchanged looks, and dart for Ghost Pony Rider. He runs through the swamp, nothing slowing him down. Not even the murky, muddy water is enough. Ghost Pony Rider suddenly stops. Luna and Twilight halt at their friend's sudden break. Rider is staring blankly at something in front of them. He whispers, "I remember this place." Twilight and Luna look at him in confusion. Twilight then turns to see what Ghost Pony Rider is looking at. She is stunned. The dark green color, the vines covering the outside, the disrepair of the building, and how huge it was. They didn't stumble up in an abandoned castle. Ghost Pony Rider had led them to Chrysalis Castle. Luna soon notices. "Why would the Dark Ones bring my sister here?" she asks. "I don't know, but I don't like it," Ghost Rider says, walking up to the building. Ever since he killed Chrysalis a few months back, no changeling attacks have been reported. It's like they all went into hiding after their queen's death. That meant good news for Equestria. No more changelings. Ghost Rider hopes it just stays that way. A huge door for the entering the castle was boarded shut. The door was as a good 10 feet taller than the 3. It was boarded shut so no one can get in. Ghost Pony Rider scoffs, and takes out his chain. He then backs up from the door, motioning Luna and Twilight to do the same. He flies over behind him as he starts to twirl his chain in the air like a lasso. The chain started to heat up as its color changed to orange. Ghost Rider whirled faster as a huge ring of fire started to form. A heavy grunt, he flung the club end forward. The club end of the spear crashed into the door, making it collapse. Ghost Rider pulled his chain back, and twirled it around his arm. Luna and Twilight nod at each other as they follow Ghost Pony Rider inside. The inside was dark, you couldn't even see your own hoof inside the place. Once again, Ghost Pony Rider was the candlestick in this situation. Fearing of what might happen, if they're too far separated, Luna and Twilight catch up to Rider, and stand on next to him. Ghost Pony Rider is in the middle. "Do you still smell the princess?" Twilight asks. Ghost Pony Rider takes in a huge breath through his nose. He nods. "Yeah, I do. She's upstairs." Ghost Pony Rider points to a huge staircase that led to upper levels. To save time, Luna picks up Ghost Pony Rider under his arms, and begins to fly upward. Twilight follows close. On the way, Luna is puzzled. I'm still confused. Why would the Dark Ones need my sister? Why come back to this witch's lair? Maybe they're planning something. With Stroke not with them, they can't possibly do it. Twilight adds. I can't say I know either. Wait, something's wrong. Luna and Twilight fly down and release Ghost Pony Rider. Both look at him with worry. Ghost Pony Rider looks around with caution. He could feel someone's presence. The dark inside its heart makes stand out like a sore thumb. He knew who it was. I know you're here, Deathtrap. Deathtrap lowered himself from above the pony's position. Luna and Twilight get in defensive positions. Ghost Pony Rider doesn't move. He knows Deathtrap is a bad guy, but he wants something from Blackhead's downfall. Deathtrap had a look of utter frustration on his face. He was annoyed of something, or somebody. Ghost Pony Rider walked up to Deathtrap, knowing he didn't want to kill him. So, come to your senses. Rider asks. Yep, got that right. Deathtrap says, rubbing the back of his neck. What changed? Ghost Rider asks. Deathtrap put his talons to his hips as he paced himself back and forth. He was annoyed of being ordered, of being used. He wanted to quit, while he still had his life. He didn't like Blackhead, not one bit. She is beginning to be a real pain in my arse. I can't take it anymore, Rider. I'm willing to help you fight her to show I've changed. Luna walked in front of Ghost Pony Rider, and stared Deathtrap in his animalistic red eyes. Her face of pure rage spoke for itself. She didn't like Deathtrap. She didn't forget his little massacre of Cloudsdale not too long ago. She didn't trust him. What makes thou think we can trust thee? Luna says, gritting her teeth. Deathtrap still has look of annoyance as Luna stares him down. He knew why she didn't trust him. He also knew he would never see the light of day after this adventure. Deathtrap was prepared to pay the price for his crimes. As a hired mercenary, Deathtrap was used to killing all sorts of creatures. He also was used to working alone. This was an exception though. However, he knew something Ghost Pony Rider needed to know. Deathtrap walks past Luna, and kneels down to Ghost Pony Rider. Blackhead is planning to sacrifice Celestia to some sort of master she has. Chrysalis Castle. Rooftop. Celestia was dazed. She couldn't remember what had happened. All she could recall was her looking at Ghost Pony Rider's family photo and then, nothing. Now she's waking up on a metal table, spread eagle, on a rooftop. She tried to break free, but her strength was weak. She tried to use her magic, but she was too weak to use it. It was as if something had drained her of her power. A small laughter came from behind her. Her eyes went wide-eyed. Celestia tried to look behind her, but the table was in the way. Who's there? I demand that you release me, she says. A black tentacle then came from under the table, and it wraps around Celestia's leg. She struggles more, but to no avail. Another appendage comes from the other side of the table and wraps around Celestia's torso. Sweat begins to drip down her cheek. She hears footsteps from behind the table. A gray earth pony with a black, stylish mane comes from behind the table with a sinister grin. Celestia narrows her eyes. She then sees the gray pony's black, emotionless eyes. A terrified look forms on Celestia's face. What? Is it the eyes? Blackhead asks. Why have you captured me? Celestia asks. Blackhead laughs as she uses one of her black appendages to lift the metal table upward, so Celestia was eye level with Blackhead. The look of despair on Celestia was priceless to Blackhead. She had big plans for the Sun Goddess. Big plans indeed. You're going to help me summon my master, Blackhead says with a smile. Your master? Discord isn't the one to have worshippers. Blackhead's smile evaporates as it turns to pure rage. Blackhead slaps Celestia with her hoof, knocking her head to the side with force. Celestia is breathing heavily, same with Blackhead. Don't you dare mention that traitor's name to me, Celestia thought to herself as she collects herself from the slap. Got to admit, didn't see that coming. Celestia stares into Blackhead's soulless eyes with curiosity now. Then who is? She asks. Blackhead's smile returns as she laughs. She then releases the black appendages from Celestia's backs away from the princess. Celestia knew exposition was coming, an annoyed look on her face. That bastard Discord promised I could take revenge on those who made my life hell. This sounds familiar. Celestia thought. When I achieved my goal, I went to Discord, because I wanted more. I wanted to do more than just kill those who made others miserable. I wanted to make others miserable. To make their worst fears come to life. To strike fear in Equestria. However, he denied me. Said that wasn't the deal. About that time he was reformed thanks to your stupid elements of harmony. I ran off, planning for this day. To capture you, and sacrifice you to my one true master. The Sun God. Sun God. Celestia gives a fearful look. Blackhead comes in closer to Celestia. To a point, where their muzzles were just barely touching. Celestia flushed slightly as Blackhead smiled maniacally at the reaction. She leaned into Celestia's ear. His name is... A huge blazing inferno exploded a part of the roof exposing Luna, Twilight, Deathtrap, and Ghost Pony Rider. Luna was carrying Rider, while Twilight and Deathtrap were flying. Ghost Pony Rider jumped onto the roof, while Deathtrap and the princesses lowered down. Blackhead gave a look of surprise. Deathtrap. What are you doing? Blackhead yells. Shut up, ya grey bitch. Deathtrap returns. Blackhead snarls. Deathtrap has made the biggest mistake of his life by betraying her. She would make sure he would die before anyone else. Ghost Pony Rider draws his shotgun from his back, and narrows his eye sockets. Listen, Blackhead, let the princess go, and I want her to you. Much. Blackhead starts to laugh. Everyone except Ghost Pony Rider backs up a bit. He wasn't about to let her mind games get to him. Neither was he about to let her escape. Blackhead is still laughing. Something was wrong. Ghost Pony Rider senses something evil. Mounds of black puddles begin to form on the roof with bubbling heavily as they start to make dog-like monsters. They were a head taller than the ponies, and just as tall as Deathtrap. They growled and snarled with saliva leaking from their mouths. Their crimson eyes full of lust for blood. The heroes were back to back with each other as the monsters multiplied. You think I came alone? You're wrong. I'm giving this sacrifice to my master if it kills me. Black screams with a smirk. That can be arranged. Deathtrap commented. Rider, remember the pool I told thou about? Luna asks. Ah, yeah. By my knowledge, you should be on the side of this castle. Got it. You'll try not to die first. The creatures leapt for the heroes. They jumped high, making all of them to go into a cluster. Ghost Pony Rider knocked his hoof back, building fire into it. He then dived headfirst into the pile of monsters. A huge explosion of oil and fire covered the rooftop with a black substance. The substance began to form more monsters than before. Ghost Pony Rider was surrounded. He narrowed his eye sockets as he whipped out his chain. He gripped the chain with both hooves as his fire turned crimson. A demonic circle forms under him. Everyone stares in awe. The innocents will be avenged. Blade. Counter down. Ghost Pony Rider slams his hoof on the roof, making the creatures evaporate into dust, and the shockwave knocks the flyers out of the sky. Everyone opens their eyes, to see piles of ash near Ghost Pony Rider and a burned spot where his hoof hit. Ghost Pony Rider smiles. Remind me to never get Sir Ghost Rider angry, Twilight. Luna says. Twilight laughs. Blackhead and Ghost Pony Rider begin a stare down. This fight would determine the fate of Princess Celestia and all of Equestria. Twilight turns to see other Pegasus ponies approaching with the camera and mic. Oh no, it's the news. Luna and Deathtrap turn to see the ponies as well. Luna flies over, and warns the ponies to stay back. They agree and fly back a good yard away from them. They start up the camera. Hello everybody, this is Millicent, and I'm bringing you an important bulletin. It appears the legendary Ghost Pony Rider is fighting some sort of monster pony for the life of Princess Celestia. Televisions across Equestria were then broadcasted to the event live. Millions of TVs caught in the moment. Millions of ponies tuned into the fight. Ghost Pony Rider and Blackhead were still staring each other down. This ends now, Blackhead. I couldn't agree with you more. The two monsters then charge each other, each getting closer. The impact of the two sent a shockwave through the air, almost knocking everyone out of the air. Both ponies locked heads, trying to overpower the other. A huge ring of fire around the two as they pushed against the other. Blackhead extended an appendage from her back, and swatted Ghost Pony Rider away. He hit the ground, skidding across the ground. He jumps up, and spears his chain at Blackhead, making contact with her chest. He pulls back with force, causing Blackhead to fly toward him. "Come here." Ghost Pony Rider hooks Blackhead, sending her flying away from him. She lands on the ground on all fours. He looks down, and sees the wound where the spear hit. Blood leaking from the wound. It closes in a matter of seconds. Blackhead smiles. She looks up, but gets a flying kick to her face. She is knocked on her back. Ghost Pony Rider is on top of her, and holding her down. "This is your idea of a good time," she says, smiling. Ghost Pony Rider growls, but Blackhead uses both of her legs to kick him off, sending him flying into the air. She then unleashes a barrage of tentacles toward Ghost Pony Rider, hitting him from every direction. Ghost Pony Rider calls out to his best ability. "Hey, now, guys. Can you maybe help me?" Luna and Twilight Knot and Deathtrap goes to try and free Celestia. He lands next to her, and tries his best to pry open the restraints. "I thought you were with her. Why are you helping us? Let's just say, I don't want to destroy the world," Deathtrap says, giving a determined look. Celestia looks over Deathtrap's shoulder to see Blackhead grabbing and throwing Luna into Twilight with her tentacles. Ghost Pony Rider tackles Blackhead to the floor and wraps his chain around her neck. Ponies across Equestria are glued to their screens. This was intense. This was certainly helping Ghost Pony Rider's reputation. It was showing all of Equestria he is a hero. A hero who is willing to risk his life. Ghost Pony Rider's skull was cracked to a great extent, and he was breathing heavily. He couldn't take much more of this. Blackhead could go at this for hours. She didn't even have a scratch on her. He growled but remembered, but was at the side of the castle. He smiled. Blackhead noticed. "What's so funny?" she demands. Now it was Ghost Rider's turn to laugh. Blackhead could feel the gears in the head begin to grunt as her enemy was laughing at something. "When was the last time you took a bath?" he asks. Blackhead knocks her head back at the question. It was odd to say the least. Did she smell bad? No. It was something worse. "'Cause I saw a pool next to the building," he says, whipping out his chain. Ghost Pony Rider spear throws his chain at Blackhead, wrapping around her tightly with remorse. He struggles to get free, but is trapped when the chain bursts into fire. Ghost Pony Rider pulls her close to him with a wide smile on his skull. "Blackhead, your soul is stained by the blood of the innocent. Feel dire pain." Ghost Pony Rider grabs Blackhead and jumps off the castle top, catching everyone's attention. Luna attempts to follow but is blocked by a bright yellow shield. She looks to see Celestia free from the table, and with her magic back, she shakes her head at Luna. Luna gives a worried look as she stares at the falling ponies. Ghost Pony Rider stares up, and sees the pool Luna told him about. He knew if he hit that pool as well, he could kiss his powers goodbye. That was a risk he was willing to take. Blackhead screamed at him. "What are you doing, you fool? We'll both be killed in the water." Ghost Pony Rider looks at her, and smiles and narrows his eye sockets. "No, just you. I still have a soul, you stone cold bitch." That was the last thing that was said before both crashed into the deep pool with a huge splash. The water begins to glow green. Under the water, already Blackhead and Ghost Pony Rider were feeling the effects of the pool. Blackhead screamed and screeched under the water as her body began to dissolve into nothing. Not even her bones were left as parts of her body began to disappear into the water. Ghost Pony Rider watched with wide eye sockets as Blackhead evaporated into nothing. She was gone. Now it was Ghost Pony Rider's turn. His fire has stopped. He could feel a powerful energy leave his body as he saw flesh beginning to form on his hooves. He felt his face to discovered it to be squishy. He had an actual face again. He also had organs again. That included lungs. Ghost Rider started quickly pedaling up to the surface. He reached the surface in only a few seconds. He took in a deep breath with actual lungs again. He was normal. He looked into the pool to see himself. His skin was peach-orange with a blonde mane. His eyes were brown. Ghost Pony Rider gave a wide smile. He was normal. Soon, he is joined by Luna, Twilight, Celestia, and Deathtrap, all giving wide-eyed expressions. Right there, you're a real pony again. Twilight says. I have to say, mate, you look good. Deathtrap adds. You sacrificed your powers to destroy Blackhead. Celeste asks. Ghost Rider closes his eyes and smiles. He didn't think that through. He didn't know his powers would go when he jumped into the pool. He chuckled. Yeah, I guess I did. Twilight then comes and hugs Rider with care. The sacrifice you made helped save Celestia and all of Equestria. Bravo. That was excellent. Everyone looks behind and sees the Lord of Chaos Discord with a wide smile. This was unexpected. Ghost Pony Rider approaches Discord with a narrowed look. What are you doing here? Rider asks. Simple. I enjoyed the fun and I want to give you a reward. He says. Everyone was exchanging glances. A reward from Discord was nothing good. It either meant someone was going to be changed a different color, given a new body part, or worse. Ghost Pony Rider gave a confused look. He was interested. What kind of reward? He asks. Discord laughs and flows down to eye level with Ghost Pony Rider. I want to give you your powers back, he said. Now everyone went wide-eyed. This was unexpected even for Discord. This was kind of him. The promise of his powers back was like years ago, when he first got them. He felt like a kid again, when Discord gave him the choice to have his powers back, and continue being the hero, or be normal pony. Ghost Pony Rider smiled. He already knew the choice. He nodded. Discord laughs as he snaps his fingers. A fireball forms in his lion paw. He points it at Ghost Pony Rider as it goes through his mouth and eyes. He roars as he flesh begins to burn away. Bits and pieces are flying off. He laughs as his head bursts into a blazing inferno. The last of flesh burns off as he raises his skull. With narrowed eye sockets he roars into the sky. Ghost Pony Rider was back. Everyone cheered for their friend. Everyone across Equestria were cheering and celebrating the victory over evil as well. Soon, the whole planet was in an uproar of cheering for their hero. Evil was vanquished. The world was saved, all thanks to Ghost Pony Rider. A few days later, Twilight was in Canterlot with Spike on one of their routine visits. Twilight and Celestia were taking a stroll with Spike on Twilight's back. The day was pleasant with no clouds in sight. The sun's rays were shining through the windows. Something caught Twilight's mind. Hey princess. Where's Deathtrap and Stroke? Celestia turns her head to Twilight with a smile. Stroke is serving some time at a mental institution near Philadelphia. Deathtrap had decided to pay for his crime and bits he earned from jobs he did. He don't know where he is at the moment. Outside the castle, Deathtrap was perched on a cliff looking over Ponyville. He paid all he had, and personally made himself disappear from Equestria's records. To them, he was dead. He smiled at the thought. He then heard walking behind him. He smiled. Ghost Pony Rider emerged from behind him, and stood next to Deathtrap. What's next? Rider asked. I don't know. I figure something out, he said. Ghost Pony Rider chuckled. Well, don't kill innocent ponies, that's a thought. Both him and Rider laughed. Deathtrap was reformed from being a murderer to a hired hand. He didn't kill anymore. He wanted it to stay that way. Deathtrap stood up, and puffed his wings out. He turned to Ghost Pony Rider, and gave a small smile. You'll see ya around, mate. Ghost Pony Rider nodded as Deathtrap took off into the sky. He disappeared from sight after a few seconds. Ghost Pony Rider took this time to begin his running session. He leaped off the cliff, and landed on a lower ground. He begun running fast and good. He would never get tired of this feeling. Running was his best thing to do. Ghost Pony Rider was running into the great land of Equestria. He saved the world. He needed a vacation now.
That's all, Zipsters! Like and subscribe.